Imagine your world without your hearing. A world of complete silence. No sound of waves on the beach, no sound of leaves rustling in the wind, no sound of people just chattering on the sidewalk. And if you knew you were going to lose your hearing, what sounds would you want stuck in your quiet head for the rest of your life? And why those sounds? I was a 19-year-old invincible college sophomore when I abruptly lost most of my hearing. An MRI showed tumors the size of golf balls on both of my hearing nerves at the base of my brain. And my doctor told me my treatment decision would soon force me to choose between saving the rest of my hearing and saving my life. Almost as a coping mechanism, I would go on to develop a unique process that would give me as much control over my hearing as possible. The location of those tumors also meant I had neurofibromatosis type 2, or NF2, a rare neurological disorder impacting just 1 in 40,000 people. Turns out I lack a gene that prevents tumors from growing on the miles and miles of nerves in our body. In the years that followed, my hearing continued to decline as those tumors continued to grow and compress my brainstem. I did my very best to ignore the slow steamroller of deafness that was moving toward me. And to be very clear, there's nothing wrong with being deaf. It just wasn't a culture or a life that I knew. And I began to ask myself the same question I just asked you. What did I want to hear while I still had a chance? I quickly zeroed in on music. Nora, my girlfriend at the time, and I caught every band that our limited income and my limited hearing would allow. Except I wasn't just listening to music anymore. I was filing it away in a mental jukebox to be played in the coming years and decades when I wanted to remember how music made me feel. What song did I want to dance with my daughter at her wedding? What song did I want in my head at the funeral of one of my parents? I was creating a soundtrack for a life I had not yet lived. One day I went into work and everyone sounded like they were underwater. Sensing something was seriously wrong, I got in a cab and went home and told Nora, I think it's happening. A steamroller had arrived. And she looked at me with an extra enunciation, asked, Matt, what do you need right now? Heavy question. What's the last thing I want to hear? Well, Nora, she has a world-class laugh. It could sell tickets. If my hearing were leaving me for good, I wanted to send it off with the sound of her laughing. So we walked to our favorite restaurant, and over tableside chips and guac, I did my very best to prompt that laughter, maybe for the last time. And looking back now, I have to think other people at the restaurant must have been wondering, why does that girl keep yelling such sweet things to that boy? That girl and I have been married 22 years now. I woke up the next morning to silence. Not even the sound of my own breath. I was in my mid-20s, and the entire concept of sound existed only as a memory. My life is filled with wonderful friends and family, and still, I had never felt more lost and alone. I'm not a doctor, so here's the Sesame Street version of how we're here. Our ears are experts at picking up subtle vibrations, and they carry them to a hearing nerve. Our hearing nerve converts those vibrations into electrical impulses, and our brain learns to convert those electrical impulses into dogs barking and birds chirping. There's technically nothing wrong with my ears. I think they stick out too far, but they carry those vibrations just fine. But those tumors, and the surgery I would soon have to remove those tumors had permanently destroyed that important nerve that connects my ears to my brain, like a washed-out bridge at the end of 2 perfectly paved roads. Ahead of that surgery, we'd learned of a recently approved device called an auditory brainstem implant, or ABI. It was intended to bypass that washed-out bridge by attaching 12 electrodes that look like a tiny fly swatter directly to my brainstem. We think this is a part of your brain that processes sound, I was told. We think? The expectation of the AVI, if it worked at all, was to hear life noises, which is like oven timers or police sirens. I was told speech understanding probably was not ever an option. And upon activation of my implant, life noises are exactly what I heard. Specifically, everything in my life sounded like a bottle cap stuck in a garbage disposal. But after months of total silence, garbage disposal, surprisingly romantic. I had achieved clinical expectations. I was a long way from achieving my expectations. I wanted more. And for years, I wore my implant everywhere in hopes that my brain would just adjust. And then one night after our twins were born, Nora woke me up and motioned for me to put on my implant. And when I did, I heard a baby crying. I was overcome with a feeling of helplessness because I'm a new dad. I didn't know one of my kids needed me, and I couldn't tell which one it was. My speech understanding at the time was barely 20%, and I knew then that was not going to be good enough. I had to do something more. I didn't realize it, but that moment was the beginning of what would become a lifelong process of hearing recovery. A process made more difficult because there was no roadmap. There was no evidence anywhere that more effort would ever lead to a better outcome. I couldn't trust the process because I was about to create the process. The next morning, I got in my car and I pulled out of the center console a scuffed up CD. It was gold, and on one side, in black Sharpie, it was titled Songs We Like. It was a 12-song mix CD from our wedding. I cleaned it off, put it in the CD player. Nothing. Understood nothing. I listened to those same 12 songs every day for a year. Nothing. 2 years, 3 years, still nothing. Then, one day, Nora and I are in the car, and almost by accident, over the radio, I heard one line from the song Crazy Game of Poker by OAR, which is a band we'd loved. I heard music. With a battery-powered microphone and 12 surgically implanted electrodes, I heard music. Now, for most of you, your hearing comes in a box of 64 Crayola crayons with the flip-top lid and the built-in sharpener on the back. I hear it with the 3 crayons you get in an Applebee's kids menu. And yet, I heard music. I listened to the rest of the song and understood nothing more but that one line. That one line was all the evidence I needed that my process of repetitively listening to songs I knew was working. And that process, combined with my own irrational persistence, prompted me to double down on what I was capable of doing. Rather than forever accept that my implant would struggle to tell me the way things sound, I decided then I would start telling my implant the way things were supposed to be based on what I already knew. John, Paul, George, and Ringo became my translators. And in the years that followed, the playlist of songs I could understand grew to over 50 titles long, and my speech understanding improved from 20% to 60%. Our ears are nearly magical in how they serve up information for us to understand. Except I wasn't hearing with my ears anymore. Carol Flexer is a wonderful audiologist in Ohio who reminded me, Matt, our ears know nothing. My ears know nothing. And that reminder prompted me to double down. It prompted me to focus even more my process, not just on music or words, but on the individual pieces that make up words called phonemes. And with that intentional auditory training, in the 18th year of wearing a brain implant, my speech understanding improved from 60% to 96%. And that's an A on even the toughest grading scale. It had been 2 decades since the doctor told me I'd have to choose between saving my hearing and saving my life. And in that time, my process has shown that I could have both. My ears know nothing, and they keep a microphone from sliding off my face, but my ears know nothing. And my implant tells me that my daughters, They inherited their mom's perfect laugh. My ears know nothing, and I hear music every day.